Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Katie, and this is my podcast, Smitten with Knittin'. For those of you who are returning viewers, I appreciate your joining me. And for those of you who are new, welcome. My podcast is typically about knitting and some of my other adventures in creativity and the fiber arts. I have to apologize to my returning viewers. It has been a long time since I last podcasted. Life has its way of happening, of course. The days are full and the weeks are even fuller, but we being my husband and I, just one heck of a fall. We went to Europe in September, which was amazing, and then it's sort of like we came back from Europe and everything just fell apart. We live in an older home, which we absolutely adore. It has so much character, original hardwood floors, a beautiful front porch, and just lots of quirks. And we've gotten used to the quirks, but they always seem to pop up and creep up when we least expect it. So when we bought the house, it's 95 years old, so it was built 1922, and when we purchased it, it has this amazing workshop in the basement that was already set up, and my husband was thrilled because much like I have knitting to keep my mind active and my hands busy and kind of give me a purpose outside of my day-to-day, he was looking for much the same thing. So he has bought tools over the years and settled into that space. Well, it would turn out, right before we left for Europe, that he discovered one of the floorboards was getting a bit weak. So he pulled it back, and the floorboards were just plywood. It was a very basic workshop, but somebody had taken the time to put in a subfloor and drywall and pegboard and whatnot. So he pulled the floorboard back, and underneath he discovered that all of the framing for that subfloor had rotted out. At some point, our house must have had a flood in the basement, and we expected that there's a lot of history that we just don't know about with the home, but it probably sat and nobody took any action. So we always run a dehumidifier, but that, because it had been enclosed, wasn't really helping that dry out. We've been in the house 3.5 years now, so we kind of pretended we didn't see it, went away to Europe, came back, and thought, okay, well, we'll pull apart the floor, we'll plug both dehumidifiers in, it'll dry out, we'll be able to put down a new floor. We soon learned that that was not going to be our fate. We had to pull back all the plywood, all the subfloor, and as we got closer to the walls where the drywall had been installed, we had to pull all the drywall down, all the insulation, because the studs for those walls were drilled into the subfloor. So whomever did it definitely had some construction background and knowledge, but over time and years, nails rust, screws rust, things just don't go the way they want to. So we were at that house with the big ugly blue dumpster in it for about a week, or outside of the house in the driveway. The good news is, well, it took us a couple weeks to do the demo, and then we had to do it almost like an acid wash on the floor. And on top of that, we needed to paint the floor and dry lock the walls to help create more of a moisture barrier. So it took just about every weekend that we had in the month of October, and it even crept into November a little bit. The good news is it's at a point where he's been able to rehang some of the pegboard. We've decided we're just painting the floor, so he's got his little nook. But unfortunately, when you work full time Monday through Friday, even in the evenings when we would do a little bit of work, it still consumed weekends, and so it kind of cut into my podcasting. And then on top of that, and I don't mean to make this sound like I'm complaining, but I want you to understand why it's been so long since I've been in touch with my knitting community. Our little pug Watson is a rescue, and we adore him dearly. I keep looking over at him. He's sitting in my recliner right now. I had hoped he would join me here on the podcast, but he's comfortable, and well, when Watson's comfortable, you don't interrupt that. But he's a rescue. He's 12-ish years old, as my husband likes to say. And he has had issues with the side of his cheek swelling. We've been back and forth to the vet multiple times. They've determined it's probably something dental. So he's going to go in right before Christmas for some dental work, probably have some teeth extracted. But when I say chipmunk cheek, it was like golf ball cheek. This poor little guy, he's such a trooper. He doesn't whine or whimper. He just plugs right along, but it was a lot of back and forth to the vet and trying to figure out what was going on with him. Kind of a scary road because he is older and lumps often mean not so good things, but we think that we're going to be able to resolve it. So that's also kept us a little busy and active. And then on top of it, I managed to get a virus that kind of hit the upper respiratory area. I have this lovely voice to share with you today. This is not, the frog in the throat is not my typical status. However, I'm actually on the end of it. So I do apologize if you find my voice a little irritating today. I hope by the next time I podcast, I'll have kicked it. It went through my husband's entire family, and we had our niece come to stay with us a couple weekends ago, and I think I was already just worn down and tired, and Aaliyah was so kind to give me her germs. So, yeah, we've all been through it. We'll get over it. But I do occasionally cough too. So I have my trusty mason jar of seltzer water here ready to go if I go into a coughing fit. So I apologize in advance. For those of you who have viewed my podcast before, it typically had a format to it. I did different segments and I always did show notes. And so in the time where I haven't been podcasting, but I keep thinking about it and how much I miss doing it, I've realized that in an effort to be so organized and so structured, that in some ways I lost the initial energy and reason behind podcasting, and that was to share my love of knitting, my love of yarn and yarny goodness, and all things fiber related. So today I'm not going to use that format. I do have a plan, so it won't be completely haphazard, but I'd love to hear your feedback on whether or not you prefer the more formatted segments, or if Smitten with Knitting all natural, if you will, works better. So let's jump into the yarny goodness. So the one thing that I have to say is, even though I haven't podcasted, I have had ample opportunity to work on some finished objects. And I feel really good about my Christmas knitting. I am the nerd that started it in July. So I did give myself that advantage, but I feel like for the past couple months, all I've been doing is knitting for Christmas. And that's challenging because I come across patterns and yarns and things that I want to do for myself, so selfish knitting. But then I also realize that it means so much to me to be able to give somebody a gift that's handmade rather than buying one in a big box store. So it's this blend of wanting to knit to grow in my skill, but also wanting to knit to give. So I've done a lot of knit to give, but the other thing is too, I know the recipients will so appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to January. That will be my selfish knitting month. And there's a very good chance that will bleed into February. So I'm going to jump into the finished objects, just because I'm excited that I have so many to share with you. So, gosh, it would have been May. Yeah, I think May. I ordered some yarn from Freckled Whimsy, and it was called Just Kevin, and it's an 8-stripe repeat. And the reason I purchased the yarn was the part of the proceeds from that yarn purchase went towards an animal shelter. And with a pug that's a rescue, I felt a deep connection to that. Gosh, my hair is like out of whack today. Anyways, so I purchased the yarn with the intent to make my husband socks. And I did. I successfully made him socks. However, in this effort to think proactively about Christmas gifts and things that my husband would appreciate, I forgot how big his foot is. And knitting man socks, when your husband's foot is a size between 12 and 13, like that takes some serious dedication. And he's totally worth it, but I hope he totally appreciates these socks, because my feet are small. I have a size 7, so I can whip out socks for myself in no time. But his, I was like, is this foot ever going to end? The result, however, I'm very, very happy with, and again, he's totally worth it. So I used Susan B. Anderson's Smooth Operator socks pattern, and you can see even the sock blocker can't handle like the size of this foot, the heel, and I even ordered bigger sock blockers. The Smooth Operator socks I love though, because it does an afterthought heel, which as I play with that pattern more and get more familiar with it, it adds a lot of fun when you are working stripes as to how you want to stop and split the stripe and use what yardage you have for the heel. So here it is sans sock blocker. I know he'll appreciate them, but yeah, that was some serious dedication. I think the man is only going to get worsted weight socks from now on because those go so much faster. But this yarn is so squishy, and I love the colors too. I love that bright pop of green, and I found that it was a nice sturdy sock yarn to work with. So I think she has some different colorways up for the holidays in her Etsy shop, and some of them are pre-order and some of them are ready to ship. So definitely check them out. They're beautiful. And I'm glad to know that even though these took forever to knit due to the size of his foot, the portion of the proceeds went to a really good cause too. So I supported a maker and an animal shelter. That's like a total win in my world. All right. So moving along, I got this great idea in my head. So one day I was at my local yarn store, which is Eva's Yarn Shop in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. And I saw these two different colorways of yarn. And if you're not familiar with what I'm going to show you, the yarn itself is Knit Call's, or Adria Phil's Knit Call. It's just got this jacquard print that kind of, I think that's what it's called. As you knit up, you can kind of see that become visible. So I saw on, by the display, these cute little stocking caps. And I was like, nieces and nephews for Christmas, this will be perfect. And because they're little nuggets, they've got little noggins. So it goes pretty quickly. So I did successfully knit up two in that particular pattern. And then I thought, well, there's one brother and sister that belongs to one of my husband's brothers. And then there's another brother and sister that belongs to another of my husband's brothers. He's the oldest of 4 boys. God bless my mother-in-law. So I thought, oh, I'll do a different kind of pattern for the other set of nuggets. And every year since each one of them has been born, there's a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, let's see, a 13-month-old, and John is going to be 2 in March. So he's roughly, Katie, can you do your math? 18 months old? Yeah. So anyways, the 2 girls are older, and then they each have a younger brother. And every year for Christmas, I buy them a Christmas-themed book. So The Grinch, The Polar Express, those classics that are so just special to Christmas, and they were to me as a child. So in this year, what I decided to do, because I strayed a little bit from just books and also did hats, is I found them hat-themed books. So each of the girls is going to get what's called, it's called The Hat. It's by Jan Brett. I should have brought them in here with me so I could show you. In Jan Brett books, she's a children's author and illustrator. Her images are just to die for. And you know what? Hold on. I'm going to pause this and I'm going to grab the books because I can't do it justice explaining it. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for your patience. So as I was saying, I knit these hats up and then bought the children's books to go with them. So this is The Hat by Jan Brett. This was one of my favorites as a child, and I have to say my mother, who was a school teacher, always had a knack for finding some just very talented authors and illustrators, so she had a solid collection of her own to share with her classes. So anyways, in Jan Brett books, there is a astounding detail, but there's always a story going on in the margins as well. So whether you can read or not read, you can still engage in the material because you can make your own story up as you go. So each niece is going to get the hat, and these are the niece's hats. So this is the little sort of stocking cap elf one. I do need to put, I haven't decided, pom-pom or tassel. I would comment below or send me a note on Instagram or Ravelry. Let me know what you think. I feel like pom-poms are all the rage this year, but I don't know if a tassel would just finish it off better. This is a Plymouth yarn pattern. It's free on their website, and if you go to my Ravelry page in my projects section, the pattern is linked there as well. So this is for one niece, and then this little hat is for the other niece. This is just like a little pixie hat. It's a pattern that, again, found for free on Ravelry, and it's in my projects. I apologize I didn't bring the pattern information with me. This pattern itself, I adapted it a bit. It's actually supposed to have some lace work in here, But because of how busy the yarn already is, I felt like that would just be too overwhelming. So I just did a little knot at the I-cord knot at the top, and that's the other one. It kind of looks like a cupcake, actually, as I look at the shape of it. So that's what the nieces are gonna get. They're each gonna get their own copy of the book and then their hat. And then I was like, oh, well, what do I do for the boys? I don't want to give them the same exact book because being siblings, I know their parents are reading them both stories, but when the children grow up and go their own ways, each will have their own collection of books. Amazon, a little research on Amazon, and I found this cutie patootie. Shall I knit you a hat, a Christmas yarn? Just amazeballs. So this is about a little bunny whose mom knits him a hat for a pending storm, and then they end up knitting hats for his friends too. But like, look at the little bunny ears and the knit hat. I died. So I was like, this will be perfect for the boys. So the boys are getting hats that match their sisters. This is the little stocking cap one. And then the little pixie hat. This one I just did a little, I did an I-cord, but then I kind of like a little knot at the top as well. So I'm excited. I know that they will wear them. My little niece Aaliyah, who came to visit a couple weeks ago, saw me knitting and asked me to teach her how to knit. She is 5, so her patience threshold varies depending on the activity. But she did a pretty good job holding the needles, and I taught her, in through the front door, out around back, out through the window, off jumps Jack. And so she kept saying that rhyme, and as she was doing it, and she actually went home and was telling her mom how to knit. So I think I've got a little knitter in the bud, or in the making. So I think having those hand knit items for Christmas will be really special for those kids as well. Then I decided, hey, why not keep knitting for family? So as I had mentioned in an earlier podcast a long time ago, I wanted to make my dad some socks. My dad is, he has a number of health issues that are a result of medical experiences going awry. And it's not a matter of blame against a doctor or a certain practice. It's just certain conditions he had led to certain outcomes in certain procedures, and his life changed dramatically. It's been 10 years now, so to talk about it is a little less difficult than it was when it happened. But long story short, as a result of all of this, he gets very cold very easily. And this is a man that was hot 24/7, 365. So I thought this might be a really good opportunity to make my dad a pair of socks. So I had made a pair like this for my husband using Knit Picks Fleecy Worsted. It's the Rye pattern from Tin Can Knits. And I was at Eva's yarn shop again and decided to get some yarn to make my dad a pair of the same socks. My mom had seen them and she said, oh my God, your father would love those and he would totally wear them. So these are the finished Rye. I used a Plymouth, they're super wash solid colors for the foot, and the heel and toe are Barocco vintage. The reason I went with the Barocco for the heel and toe is I know that those parts of your feet, when you're wearing socks, tend to get a little bit more wear. And the Barocco does have a little bit of nylon or acrylic in it. So I figured that would give it a little bit more sustainability. So I'm really happy with how these turned out. The one adaptation I made to the pattern was that I did an afterthought heel. So this was after I made my own pair of afterthought heel socks using Susan B. Anderson's Smooth Operator pattern. And I really like the afterthought heel. I can turn a heel flap or do a heel flap and gusset. That doesn't bother me. Picking up the stitches I can even do. I just don't like how it looks when the stitches get picked up. I feel like there's always wide gaps. And I haven't found a good solution for that. I can do a mitered heel or short row heel too, but there's just something about Susan's pattern that with the afterthought heel, I never get a hole in the corners, and I always feel like the heel's solid. And even in wearing my own pair, I feel like it just fits better. So I'm hopeful that my dad will like these. I don't see why he wouldn't, but this is what I made for him. And so there is 2. I had 2 of them, and I did knit them 2 at a time. And because they're worsted weight, they go super fast. And my dad has teeny feet in comparison to my husband's ginormous, I don't even know if you can call them feet. Seriously, they're so big. So moving along, let me shift to, I'm noticing that as the sun moves around the room. There we go. Maybe that'll be a little less shadow. This is the great wall of yarn behind me. But I noticed there's kind of an odd reflection. So hopefully you can see everything that I have to share. I decided, along with knitting my dad those socks, that I would also knit him a pair of fingerless gloves like I had for my husband. And I used up the same yarn that I had for his socks. I figured, hey, why not? I'll make them coordinating. My dad, again, because he gets cold, I thought this would be good for him to have when he's sitting in the chair and he's using his iPad or even just watching TV. At least it'll keep his hands a bit warmer, which is particularly critical because he's on Coumadin and he has to have finger prick blood tests pretty frequently to gauge where his levels are at. So these will keep his hands warm because often when my mom goes to do that, she's like, okay, let's do this, warm your hands up. So I'm hopeful that'll be helpful in that regard too. So I did knit him those fingerless mitts. I'm going to put them on the blockers so that I can show you just how awesome they look. And I apologize if my voice is going. It's, again, markedly improved from what it was. I lost my voice for an entire day, which my husband was thrilled about. Just kidding. Just kidding. We have a very good relationship. So these are Dad's mitts. Aren't they snazzy? This is the maze pattern from Tin Can Knits. So I kept within the Tin Can Knits family. They have, it's called the Simple Collection. And it's free on Ravelry. And they have hats and mitts and socks and sweaters. My mom is actually knitting my husband, I think it's, what is it called? It's not Barley. Barley's the hat. Can't remember the name of the sweater. But it follows the same pattern. So my husband's literally going to have socks, hat, fingerless mitts, and a sweater that are all in the same pattern and all within the same color range. So he's going to look really handsome. Handsome and hand knit. So these are Dad's. And I do have the second one here. I got to show off these mitt blockers again. I ordered these from Burning Impressions 2 on Etsy. And I think Meg is the owner's name, if I remember correctly. I ordered the pair so that the thumb comes out because some mitts, when you knit them, if you're not doing mittens, but you're doing fingerless mitts, some of them have an actual thumb on them, such as the pattern that I knit up for my dad and my husband. But some of them don't. Sometimes you just do like a buttonhole opening for your thumb. So it gives you the flexibility depending on what you need when you're blocking your mitts. And they're just beautiful. These are the medium size. I love the detail and they're just a piece to be treasured too. And they're just a nice addition to my knitting collection. So sticking in the mitt theme, people must be like, does she knit anything else? Yes, I promise I do. I do. Again, it's been a lot less selfish knitting and much more holiday knitting. My grandmother, she is 91 years old. She turned 91 at the beginning of October, and she's amazing. She has lived an incredible life, and I so value that I have a strong relationship with her. Her hearing is challenged. It has been for a number of years due to her having Meniere's disease. She has fluid in her inner ear and had surgery for it, gosh, back when she was probably in her 60s. So it's something that I've grown accustomed to, is the challenge in communicating with her at times. And she does have hearing aids. But anyways, to be able to knit her something and to say that I'm knitting my 91-year-old grandmother her Christmas present is just really special. So Grandma is small. If she's 100 pounds, that would be a miracle. And she's got like the world's best genes. I mean, she looks amazing. Outside of her hearing and the fact that she has osteoporosis, so she's a little bit on the frail side, she is as sharp as a whip. Some days her memory is stronger than others, but she overall has a really good spirit. So I thought, all right, Grandma has made me plenty of things growing up. Let me make Grandma something. So I decided to make Grandma a set of fingerless mitts as well. My mom thought that that would be a good gift because it would give her the opportunity to keep her hands warm while she's doing her crossword puzzles up in her room or even just watching TV. So I adapted the maze pattern from Tin Can Knits, and I removed the ribbing that is on the palm of the hand and the back of the hand. If you can see here on the one that I made my dad, there's this ribbing pattern on either side, which I like, but my grandmother is pretty simple. She doesn't like a lot of extras, if that makes any sense. So I thought in the name of keeping life simple for her and comfortable, I would just do a ribbed cuff and top to the finger. So hers is actually, I knit my father's in the size medium, my husband's in the size large, and these are small. I use the medium blocker because when you take them off the needle and they're small, they look like they could barely fit a child's hand. But now that they've been blocked, I know that they will fit her appropriately. So they've been stretched a little bit. And her hands aren't much smaller than mine, and they fit me comfortably. So I think we'll be in good shape. But these are knit up in Plymouth worsted. Again, they're superwash merino solids. I really like Plymouth, that yarn from Plymouth line. I just find that it wears really well. It has beautiful stitch definition. And it also, having the machine wash ability is key. So those are more Christmas presents. And then it always comes down to, what do we buy my in-laws? I love my in-laws. I have an amazing relationship with both my father-in-law and mother-in-law. But my father-in-law has got to be the world's most difficult person to buy a gift for. He is one of those people that would just rather give to everybody than ever receive anything. So I asked my husband what he thought we should do, because we've tried getting him things that are Harley Davidson related because he has motorcycles, or Indian related because he's had an Indian motorcycle as well. They go in the drawer, they don't get worn. If we get them a gift certificate to take themselves out to a nice restaurant, they'll end up inviting one set of the brothers' family, and they'll take us out to eat on the gift certificate. Again, the generosity is amazing, and it's very special, but I just feel so badly that they don't ever use it on themselves. So I decided I would knit my father-in-law a hat. My husband thought, he said, my dad wears hats. You should knit him a hat. So this is the hat that I knit for my father-in-law. This is based off of the Barley pattern from Tin Can Knits. However, I removed, in that pattern, there's a garter section. I removed that section, but I used the same stitch count for the cast on and the same inch recommendation for the ribbing. I think it's 2 inches for the large size. This is mixed between the Plymouth Superwash that I used for my dad's socks and mitts, and then the Malabrigo Rios that I used for my husband's set, his hat and his fingerless mitts. And I decided that I just loved the colors together. I thought that they were really handsome. I thought this would be a good opportunity to try helical stripes. So if you're not familiar with helical stripes remove the jog that you often find when you are changing colors and you're knitting in the round. Mason-Dixon Knitting has an amazing tutorial available on their webpage. I think it links to YouTube, that describes how to do helical stripes. They sound really complicated. They're not. And I find you can do them if you're knitting in the round on a circular, or if you're knitting in the round using a DPN or a set of DPNs. So I did the helical stripes. I apologize. I'm here on the floor because I thought a pug was going to join me, and now he's out cold on my recliner. I started with the reddish tone, the Plymouth, and then did one round of straight knitting, and then I started the helical with the gray and just kept going. And there are no jogs. It's like amazing. It's this beautiful thing. And then when I got to the top, I decided, you know what, let me finish off in the gray just for a little bit of contrast. I did do a different crown than the Barley pattern calls for. I think the hat's Barley. I think it is. It could be the sweater now that I think about it, though. Anyways, it's Tin Can Knits. It's their simple collection. So anyways, I ended up decreasing every round, and I did, I put in markers. I put in 6 markers and did knit 2 together on either side of the marker to get that sort of starry effect at the top. So I'm happy with how it came out. I had fun modifying it, and it also kept me engaged because it's a pattern I've knit before, and I just didn't want to lose that. Kind of get into that mode of, I've already knit this, a couple times. This isn't exciting anymore. So I'm happy with how that came out. And then the last finished objects that I have are, no, that's a lie. I have 2 finished objects, and then I have a hoe, which is a half object. So if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend watching the Knit Show on YouTube. Vicky Howell is the host, and she's just I adore her. Her episodes are usually around 30 to 40 minutes, and she has this knit hive where she brings different makers from different areas of, I think, the world, I want to say, not just the country but the world. And they come together and they talk about their craft, and then they're knitting while she's meeting with other makers and doing live segments. So it's a really nice opportunity to just learn more, get to see more about the fiber world. And it's not just she does knitting, but she also does crochet and felting and other fiber arts. So anyways, as part of the Knit Show, she had some patterns up for the holidays. And it happened to be that I got the Webb's catalog. Webb's is a huge yarn store, a brick and mortar store, but then also you can purchase from them online. I have not been there in person. They're about 2.5 hours from where I live, but my mom has been once or twice maybe. So anyways, we both get the catalog and we were both looking at it, and my mom was like, hey, did you see the stocking pattern that's from Vicky Howell and the Knit Show? And I said, no, let me go open that catalog up. And I was like, yeah, we need to make those. So is it Premier Yarns? Hold on one second. I can tell you if it's Premier Yarns. Valley Yarns, I'm sorry. Valley Yarns is Webb's own line of yarns. And they make a superwash, super bulky, or super chunky. And that's what this pattern called for. And Vicky Howell, or Vicky herself, has some colorways. So the stocking is called Merry Knitmas. And my mom and I chose to knit it up in Vicky's actual colors. This is my stocking. And my mom's is a teal and a green. So they look really retro when they're hanging together. This was so much fun to knit. It is very intuitive. You're using a size 13 needle, so super bulky size 13 needle. It's not a super time-consuming project, and it's like an immediate gratification. But you actually knit it flat too. It's not knit in the round, but then you seam it up along the front of the stocking. So there's a couple of short rows here with the heels. Very clear, very easy to read instructions. So I'm totally in love with the stocking, and it will go over the railing to our second floor. When you get to the top of our second floor, there's 3 parts of a railing around you. The second floor came at some point as an addition to our house, so that's how they added it. And it just makes a really nice place for displaying Christmas lights and stockings this time of year. But my mom had 1 skein extra, and I had 1 skein extra. The pattern calls for 2 of the main color, 1 of the contrast color. But it turned out that we only used 1 of each. So I took the remaining pink that I had and the teal that she had. And I apologize. They have really clever names. I just can't remember them right now. But they're, again, on Ravelry in my projects page. So I knit up a second one. So there are 2 matching stockings knit up by me. And this yarn is to die for. It is so soft, and the fact that it's superwash makes me want to buy like a ton of it and make a super bulky, warm, cozy sweater. If they have like an amazing sale, maybe I will do that. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, I want to wear the stocking, which would be totally awkward, but it's like that soft. And you really can't wear a stocking, so yeah. Anyways, highly recommend the pattern. Super fun, super quick, and a great gift too. I've been thinking about like all the people that I can knit them for. And then I think about the fact that Christmas is like right around the corner. It's crazy. So those are all of my finished objects. See, I told you, life has been super busy. I haven't had time to really podcast and get that part of my act together, but the knitting happens. It's a lot of car knitting and a lot of after work, nighttime, like in the zone, just need to mental decompress knitting. So my husband, I love him to death. He knows that I'm obsessed with knitting. I mean, how could he not? There's a wall of yarn literally behind me. So he had to go into Boston one day. I can't remember if it was for work or for fun. But he stopped at a yarn store. He Googled yarn stores in Boston, and he ended up stopping at it's called Stitch House in Dorchester, Mass, which is part of Boston. Is just like south of South Boston as you head into the heart of the city. So he stopped there, unbeknownst to me, and decided to buy me some yarn. So what I love about him is that he would do that. He would totally go out on a limb and say, you know, I walk in and say, hey, I want to buy my wife some yarn, but I have no idea what I'm looking for. So he did good. He did real good. He said to the clerk or the rep that was there that I love knitting socks, which is true. There's always socks on my needles because I find them to be really good purse projects, so to speak. They're easy to pack and to bring along. And I've done pattern socks before, but I kind of just like the vanilla sock. There's just something simple and soothing about knitting in the round, and I do it magic loop. I usually do them 2 at a time, but this is 1 at a time, and you'll see why. Excuse me for one moment. So he tells the woman that I like socks, and so she brings them to the sock wall. And you've been in yarn stores if you're a knitter. You know, you walk in and you see socks yarn, and you're like, oh, okay. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, have something in mind, do you go with a color? Like, what color do you go with? Do you go with a variegated? Do you go with a tonal, a speckle? All words that aren't in his vernacular. So fortunately, they had a couple of samples set up, and he saw one on the wall, and he's like, that's the one. So he bought me Regia's Perfect. It's the Arnie and Carlos design line. So what's cool about this yarn is the center pull of the ball is bright yellow yarn. You pull until you get to the starting color. In this case, it's green. So you start knitting with the green or whatever color it may be. And then once you're done with the ribbing part of your sock, or once you're done with that color, then you know you're done with the ribbing and you move on to the rest of the sock. And it just, you keep knitting along. You do, you know, your heel. And then the same color that's the ribbing at the top, once you hit that, you know that you're roughly in the start to the end of the foot. And there's much more, you know, again, I have small feet, but there's plenty there for somebody with a larger foot. And then you finish up however much of that you need. You get to the yellow again. You pull the yellow and you start your second pair. And it's the same exact fiber, pattern, colorway, etc. As the first sock. So you get matching socks. So I've done magic loop 2 at a time, but in this case I'm doing magic loop 1 at a time because the way the yarn is structured. So I'm happy with how these turned out. Actually, let me get a sock blocker from over here. These haven't been officially blocked yet, but I want you to be able to see them with a little bit more structure. I did try them on and they fit like a glove, so I'm very excited about that. So this is what the first sock will look like, and then the second sock will be a mirror image. The one adaptation that I made, again, that obsession with the afterthought heel. So in the actual label, so if you do purchase this, don't throw the label out. It does give you guidelines on how to prepare the ball and start knitting and whatnot. As you can see, there is this blue line, some green, and then you pick the blue up again. You could do, and it even recommends in here, you can do a heel flap and gusset, or you could do a short row heel. Again, I like the afterthought heel. So what I decided to do was the minute I hit the green, so I knit in the blue, again, afterthought heel, so this doesn't exist. So I'm knitting in the blue, knitting the blue. The minute I hit the green, I cut it, pulled all that section of green out, and then picked up with the blue again. I did that because I wasn't sure if I'd have enough green to keep doing that little bit in between. And rather than risk not having enough for the heel, I thought, well, the blue on blue doesn't look that bad, and that's exactly what I'll do for the second sock. So this green I had cut out and wound up as a separate ball to do the afterthought heel. I hope that makes sense. If not, send me a message and I'm happy to explain it as best I can in another way. So this is sock 1 and sock 2 is underway. What I love about this, and I don't think this was his intention, but there's kind of like a Christmas feel to these, or a holiday feel, because of the greens and the reds and blues. And I love vintage sort of vintage Christmas, but not like Victorian vintage Christmas, more the think of like the red truck pickup truck, old-fashioned pickup truck with the Christmas tree in the back. That kind of vintage Christmas. I apologize if you hear weird noises. Watson is now, and so far in slumber, he's snoring. So anyways, these are like colors that I absolutely love for Christmas, and these kind of look like little reindeer to me. I don't know if that was the intent or not, and kind of like a candy cane stripe. So anyways, it's my first adventure into the perfect sock knitting. I really am enjoying them, however, and I have knit socks in Regia before and find that that is very durable yarn when it comes to socks. It's a good blend of fibers for that durability. So, and let me do my due diligence. This sock, or this set of socks, is living in my Diary of a Yarn Stub, my DYS bag. Julie is the, she podcasts. It's Diary of a Yarn Stub on YouTube, and that's also what she is on Instagram. I think she's Way Cool Jules on Ravelry. But Julie was my fiber share partner for the first time I ever did fiber share. And when I learned that she had an Etsy shop, she makes these great bags, and this was sort of a one-time attempt. And I just love the tomato color and the purples and the greens and everything. So this was a different style bag for her, and I scooped it right up. You got a lot to say over there, Watson. Rough life sitting in the recliner sleeping. Okay. So now, ooh, sorry, I didn't mean to kick the stand. I guess now I could probably get into acquisitions. Yeah. So I haven't really bought a lot of yarn recently because I've been knitting. The yarn that I've bought has been gift knitting. So it's been yarn with a specific intention in mind. It hasn't been to add to the collage on the behind me, which you'll be proud. Today I pulled 2 balls off the wall because I'm knitting my mother-in-law a cowl for Christmas. So I'm working through my stash. That is one of my goals. But November is my birthday month. I was born, well, yesterday was my birthday, November 25th. Happy birthday to me. Anyway, sorry. The year I was born on Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving and my birthday are always closely aligned. And I decided this year that I was going to have a little bit of a treat yourself birthday. And truly it was more a spur of the moment. I was on Etsy. Something caught my eye, and then I was like, I kind of need to have that. So, and part of it too, I think for me is it's all about supporting makers, and that's how I end up justifying it. So in watching all kinds of different podcasts, came across the Knit Style podcast, and that's run by Sharon. And she's also, I think she's a Stitch Mistress on Instagram. She does have a group on Ravelry as well. But her husband is also on the podcast with her. His name is Rich. And from what I understand about their story, both of them were in education and are now retired, which hit home for me because both of my parents worked in an education setting as well. So anyways, watching the two of them just reminds me of my parents and the great relationship that they have. But Sharon is a very, very talented knitter and indie dyer. So she has these collaborations with her friend. I believe her friend's name is Donna. Donna designs bags and Sharon dyes yarn to match the fabric. So imagine me, the pug lover, overall animal lover, cutesy fan kind of thing. And you're on Instagram, la la la, and this comes up as a pre-order. Now, how does one turn themselves away from a pre-order bag of substantial size, I might add, and a nice flexibility as well, when there are dogs wearing sweaters and fishes with Christmas trees that have lights on them, and birdies with scarves, and dogs with Christmas lights, and antlers, little birds with hats? There was no way I was turning that opportunity away. And I have an Etsy addiction, not gonna lie. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely buying that bag. And part of it for me too was this little dog here. It's definitely not a pug because it has spots on it, but its face kind of reminded me of my Watson, and I had knit him a red sweater last Christmas. So I had to have it. But it arrived my birthday eve, so the timing was just perfect. And the inside You can see Donna's designs as little paw print fabric for the holidays. It's so cute. It's not going to be used just at Christmas, though. It's happening at least through the winter time. But along with the bag came the opportunity to purchase yarn. And again, as I mentioned, Sharon is incredibly talented. And since this was my birthday present to myself, I thought, I'm going to do a little bit of treat yourself. So I purchased the colorway that matches the bag on the Posh DK. It's an MCN. So it has the cashmere in it, which is just, again, that little splurge. It's called Sweater Buddies. That's the colorway. This is going to become a pair of either mitts or fingerless mitts for myself because the colors happen to match all the different colors in my winter coats and everything. So again, knit style yarns. I apologize, the sun is shifting again. But look at these colors. And I can't even begin to tell you, see that there's like speckles. The squish factor is out of this world. It's amazing. So after watching Sharon and constantly checking her Etsy page, I'm so glad that I found something that is a good fit for me in a lot of ways, and to now be a proud owner of her yarn and one of the bags. So I wish I could say it stopped there, but it didn't, and here's why. So I have a tendency when I'm on my iPad or my iPhone to not close out the tabs in Safari, but just to kind of like keep adding and leaving them open. So one day I was like, all right, this is ridiculous, Katie, get your act together. You don't need, all this open taking up memory. And I had been on Web's website to buy the yarn for the stockings, but when I was looking at their catalog, I also came across this adorable pair of mittens. And I love owls. I love my pug, don't get me wrong, but I love owls. Like, owls are like my thing, my spirit animal, if that makes sense. And it must be the big eyes. Pugs, owls, I'm not sure. But they both have the big eye factor going on. And there's just something so regal and stately about them and just so smart and intuitive. Anyways, so this mitten pattern is for owls. And I was like, oh, I really like that, but no, I shouldn't spend the money. Well, when you have that internal debate with yourself and then you go to check the website, you find that, yep, you can't spend the money now because they're gone. There are no more kits available. Okay, well, you live and you learn. Probably didn't need them anyways. Go about your day, go about your business. Until you're like, hey, I should probably clean out my Safari history. And, oh, let me refresh that page. Oh, look at that. They have more kits in stock. Oh, yeah. So I splurged. And by splurged, let me put in perspective. It was $18 for $18 or $19. Let's say $20 for the pattern, which is a PDF, and the yarn. So really not that bad in the bigger scheme of things. So that also happened to arrive on birthday eve. So the pattern is by Barbara Gregory. It's the Horatio and Orin kit. And so there's the option to make these, which you can't really see on the picture. Well, you kind of a little bit right where my fingertip is. These are for the horned owl or for the snowy owl. So I'm going to make the snowy owl, and I'm going to make it in the exact colors that it called for because that's what the kit came with. So this is Valley Yarns. They're Northfield. Colorway is Balsam and Natural. I have never knit a charted pattern. And I was, last night when we were celebrating my birthday, we just had a nice dinner and just social time, I guess. Does that make any sense? We had a nice time celebrating my birthday with my mom and dad, my husband, and my grandma, and then my Auntie Judy and Uncle Don, who are my parents' very good friends. I refer to them as my aunt and uncle. So I was showing this to Judy, and I was like, I'm so excited. I'm going to start this in January. I've never knit from a chart. And she looked at me, and she was like, how have you knit all the things you've knit and you've never knit from a chart? But it was awesome because she gave me a bunch of suggestions and tips, and I know that she will be there for me if I have any questions. The great thing about this pattern too is that it does come with a children's size and a woman's adult size. So for $20 to get the yarn and get the pattern and have that pattern be flexible. I mean, I can make these for my nuggets someday. For those of you who are just joining the podcast, I refer to my nieces and nephews as nuggets. They're my little nuggets. So yeah, I'm just really excited, and I'm grateful that I will have Judy's tutorship. Yeah, I think that's a word. I'm going to make it a word if I need help knitting them. So those were my treat yourself moments. But now I got to share with you what I got for my birthday. So I turned 35. I really don't have any shame in talking about my age. Parts of me wish I had accomplished more by this point. Parts of me are overwhelmed with what I have managed to accomplish. So yeah, I'm 35 young. Really don't feel it. The only thing I feel right now is that I want my voice back because it has not been normal for over a week. So birthday. I don't know if it's a good thing. It is a good thing. I'm just gonna clarify that now. All of my gifts for people who are yarn related or nitty related, which means to me a couple of things. One, that they really value my interests and they pay attention to that and they know what they are. And that they also appreciate what I'm able to make for them too. And that it's not something that's just kind of like a passing fad for me, but this is a part of who I am. It's part of my identity. So my mom actually gave me my birthday present early because she wanted me to be able to wear it for Thanksgiving. And I actually had laid it out to wear to work tomorrow too. So hold on, let me get it all set up here. She knit me this shrug. I should have left it on the hanger actually so you could do it justice, but you can kind of see there. So this is a shrug. This is knit up in Plymouth Superwash. They're kettle dyed, so it's like kind of like a small batch, and it's this beautiful shade of raspberry, like deep raspberries, burgundies, cranberries, not raspberry, and it's so soft, and it's got this great and comfortable, and I'm not sure, the light might throw it off behind. You can kind of see there's a chevron pattern that's built in. So she happened to find me the perfect color shirt that matched, and I didn't bring it up with me. Oh, darn. She found this beautiful shawl pin at Eva's as well. So the yarn came from Eva's, and then the shawl pin that's seashells that have this cranberry color speckled in them. It's quite beautiful. So actually, I have a picture of me wearing this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the full detail of the shawl pin, but you'll at least be able to appreciate the sweater. So I'll insert that picture. So that was last weekend, last Saturday, I think that my mom gave it to me. And again, she wanted me to be able to wear it for Thanksgiving, which I did. And I loved it. And it kept me so nice and toasty warm. And it was a big hit amongst my husband's family because we spent Thanksgiving with them. So then last weekend I get home and I've been out with my mom and I felt just awful. I only worked one day last week. I had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off for the holiday, but Monday it was a busy day on my schedule, so I felt like I needed to go in and just make sure everything was addressed, particularly because in my line of work I'm working with college students and I don't like to let them down and not be available. So I went in Monday. And I really shouldn't have, based on the way I felt that Sunday. My mom took me out that Sunday just to get me out of the house. And, I went out for a couple hours with her to get some holiday decorations, came home and crashed. So anyways, tangents. If you're new to the podcast, I am the queen of tangents. So I apologize. So anyways, I come home from being with my mom. And it turns out that my mom asking me to go with her was certainly genuine, but it was also an intentional distraction. Because my husband and my father were in the process of getting my birthday present up the stairs and into my craft room. So my husband and I, there's this very large furniture store, not far actually from our local IKEA, that has like a basement area where they'll put showroom pieces down there or just something they have a lot of overstock in. And we go and we just check it out because he also likes to get ideas for the furniture that he can build. He is a novice at best, but he has high aspirations for himself. So I'm always like, yeah, let's go check it out. Let's see what ideas you can get. And so there's been this chair and I've had my eye on it. And I'm like, I don't need a recliner in my craft room. Like I have a perfectly little comfortable chair from IKEA, no big deal. And that chair I've had for 8 years now. But I love the chair, and I will insert a picture so you'll get to fully appreciate it. But this chair the pattern of the fabric, it looks like stockinette stitch. And I'm just looking at it right now because Watson's asleep in it, and it just looks so cozy. So this chair is one that I'd wanted, but I said to my husband's like, do you want it for your birthday? And I was like, well, I do, but no, I don't. I was like, save the money. And that's the benefit of this basement area. Like things are at a significant discount. So, and every week they get discounted more if they haven't been purchased. So come to find out, my husband, the little stinker, he took the truck, he drives a truck. So he went to work one day, and by going to work, he went and picked the chair up for me, and he stored it in our garage. Fortunately for him, because I was under the weather, I hadn't been in any interest in going into the garage to get out the holiday decorations or anything. So he and my dad brought this upstairs while my mom and I were out. And this chair, I haven't left the chair. It is so comfortable. It's so special. The thoughtfulness that was behind it, his kind of sneaky way of doing it. It matches my room, my craft room. It's just incredible. So I was just really touched by that. So I will insert a picture of the chair so you can see the knitting chair. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it's like totally up our knitter's alley. So I'm thrilled about that. Then we went again to my in-laws for Thanksgiving, and they're so sweet. They still do birthday gifts for all the adult kids, even though we've told them multiple times that they don't have to. My mother-in-law is not a knitter. She is not a crafter, and she would tell you that. So, however, she adores that I am into those types of things, and that my mom is as well. So they were up in New Hampshire for a long weekend celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. And they drove by a yarn store. And my mother-in-law said to my father-in-law, turn around, let's go check out the yarn store. And my father-in-law, I'm sure, was probably like, you don't knit, Linda, what are we doing? But she went in and she said, I have a daughter-in-law who loves to knit, who is constantly making us things. I'm looking for something to make her for, or give her for her birthday. And so they had these kits with these patterns. So this is the tracery hat. And it looks like there was like a kind of a club that they had going on, and my mother-in-law picked the pattern that she thought would work best for me. And I apologize, the sun's kind of blocking it out. But it's this hat, and with it came the yarn. So these are both Liberty Wool Light, which is 100% washable wool. Unfortunately, their colorways are numbers and not actual names. So this is 6636 and this is 6663. They're beautiful, and they really do remind me of fall here in New England when the leaves turn. But I also just love that kind of bright cherry color too. So I'm very excited, and I'm just so touched. She went out of her way to do that, or they went out of their way to do that. And I love that my family who doesn't knit is more than willing to go in a knit shop for me and say, hey, I have no idea how she does it, but what do I buy her? Or what do I get her? Because to me, there's two layers to this. One, it's a thoughtful gift in that it's something I appreciate and will enjoy. But now when I make it, I'll always have that memory of where it came from too. So that's something I certainly appreciate. And then, hold on a minute, I'm going to lean over. I apologize. I'm going to kind of be out of the screen, because I didn't make that incredibly awkward. I got a package from my aunt. And my aunt is my dad's sister. She lives out in Buffalo, Niagara Falls area, which is where my family's originally from. And my grandmother on my dad's side passed away in 2011, and she was the oldest of 5 girls. One of her sisters passed away young. She experienced a premature death, but the other sisters were always around for all the holidays, and so I always got to know them and grew close to them as well. Unfortunately, Auntie Debbie, who was the youngest of the siblings, passed away a couple of years ago from cancer, or it's just about a year ago, I believe. And they're in the process. Her sons, one lives local to the area, one lives in California. They're in the process of preparing her home to sell it. So this was hanging on my Auntie Debbie's wall. And it was in a frame, but the frame had aged and was falling apart. But my aunt, they asked, if there's anything that Katie would want, or Peter or Mary, my parents, please grab it. And my aunt grabbed this for me. And I don't know, it is cross stitch. I don't know if my aunt actually cross-stitched this or if somebody bought this for her. It looks to me like it might have been something that she did make, only because on the back it's just taped up with a note from my aunt as to where it came from. So it's just like, yeah, taped up on a piece of probably the board that came in the frame. You know, they always come with a piece of paper or cardboard in them. But I'm so touched by this. It brought tears to my eyes to have that memory of my aunt. And my grandmother was also a big knitter. I've shared in previous episodes a sweater that she had knit that I still have. So yeah, just really a really special birthday. And then she also sent me some owl figurines that were from another one of my grandmother's sister's houses. Auntie Judy also passed away, I believe, within this year. Everything has been happening so quickly and so many levels with our families that it's been hard to keep track of. But just really touching. And then last night, and they always do this, I always tell them they never need to. Auntie Judy and Uncle Donald brought me a gift as well. And Auntie Judy knit me a scarf. And I love it because the colors are just so soft and there's subtle variation in between the grays and the browns and the pinks. I'll show it up to you close up, doesn't get too blown out. So this scarf is the zigzag scarf. And I can smell that she even washed it in Euclid. It smells so good. It is, I love it. I just love it. I adore it. It matches so many of my clothes. It's nice and wide, so it's got some good depth to it for, really bundling up or even just wearing kind of over the shoulders. I will cherish it. Last year, Auntie Judy knit me this beautiful owl cowl that was knit in the round, so it's really super thick and super dense. I can only hope that it gets that cold here in New England to wear it, because as of late, it was 62 or 63 degrees yesterday on my birthday in November. That's never happened. The year I was born, it was snowing. So the weather has just not been very seasonable, and it leaves me so bummed because I have these beautiful hand knits, especially the owl cowl, which is like perfect for cold weather, but we don't have cold weather yet. So I'm looking forward to wearing this and to wearing that. And I just love too that it's like within the same tone, color palettes. I shouldn't say tone, but same like color scheme as the one that my mom made me. So yeah, I love it. So I know you're going to watch this eventually too, Auntie Judy. So thank you so much. Mwah. And then they gave me another gift because that's just who they are. They were in New Hampshire as well. It feels like everybody's gone to New Hampshire lately, which is kind of funny because that's actually where I grew up. And I have not been back there in years. And it's not that far. New England, you can get anywhere in like less than half a day. So this is the multicolored infinity scarf. It is marine, extra fine merino, polyamide, and cashmere. This is a neat little kit. So the store owner made this. It comes, it's all these little bundles of yarn, variegated yarn. And you just use a provisional cast on and you knit in the round. And then you do the Kitchener off, which Kitchener in the round is always such a treat. I'm hoping to perfect that skill with this. But this is going to make like such a fun scarf. I cannot wait. It's going to like match everything I own. And if you know me or have watched this podcast, which means you know me, you know I love color. Color, color, color. I can make anything coordinate. And I pride myself on that because I go to work and people are like, I would never have put that together, but you look really good in it. And I'm like, yes, because people need to not be afraid of color. They need to embrace the color. It's just much better to live in a colorful world, I've decided. It's a much happier place. So thank you, Auntie Judy and Uncle Donald. I really appreciate it. And this is more selfish knitting come January. So yeah, my fingers are going to be busy in the winter, which, you know what, we'll probably get the snow in like February or March when we're ready for the, crocuses to start popping up. But anyways, so I can see that I'm already at 50 minutes, and that's after I paused to go get the books that I bought for my nieces and nephews. So this is going to be a long one, folks. I'm sorry. But I appreciate you for hanging in there. There's a couple things I want to show you. So speaking of IKEA, if you're not familiar with IKEA or don't get their catalog or haven't been into one, Part of their Christmas line is, their Christmas stuff is always very Nordic, the company's out of Sweden, but they have ceramics that look like knitting. And you know how I found out about this? Again, it's Instagram. I follow UU Yarns, Heather Walpole behind UU Yarns, and Heather had posted on Instagram. Heather actually used to be a designer for IKEA, and now she has her own line of yarn. But she had posted that IKEA had these pattern bowls or plates, dishware. So this is not the only piece I bought. Let's be clear. This is one. I don't know if it's getting blown out from the sun. Maybe if I turn this way a little bit. Is that better? Okay. So there's this one. But I didn't stop at the bowl. Why would you stop at the bowl? Oh, yeah. Garter stitch plate. And I don't know if these are totally intended to look like, if there is... No, I'm guessing they totally were intended to look like knitwear, let's be honest. So there's this plate, which is a nice little dish. And then a garter stitch cup. And I actually got myself a cup for work as well as my pencil. I needed a new pencil jar, and I was like, let's bring the knitting to work. Let's bring the zen to work. I can't knit at work, but I can at least be in that kind of cozy environment. And then, oh, yeah, let's get a big plate with the knit stitch. Or stockinette stitch. Yeah. So I bought my mom the same, or actually I bought a variety, and we each just picked out what plates we wanted and bowls. And then there was a huge platter as well. I didn't get the platter. I don't plan on eating off of these, though they would be adorable for place settings. I plan on leaving them in my craft room because now I have... This is not going to work well. I have this nice little set, and this is great for scissors and notions. Oh, boom. Yarn storage, yarn bowl. And it's also really good for staging photos. If you go to my Ravelry page, most of my recent updates are staged with these in the background. So if you're that obsessed with yarn and yarny goodness and yarny-like things, highly recommend it. And they were pretty affordable, too. They weren't outstanding in price. The last thing, is that really the last thing, Katie? That is always the question. Yes. The last thing that I want to share with you is through the generosity of another maker. So, I have mentioned her before, Jen Sheelan of the Jen Sheelan podcast and Jen Sheelan Yarn. She dyes yarn. She does a podcast. She has her own knitting patterns. She's just fabulous. And she lives here in Massachusetts. And she also has rescue dogs. So I've connected with Jen in that regard. And Jen has offered to give up one of her pattern away as a giveaway as part of my podcast. So I've kind of been holding on to that. Then I learned through a very nice message on Instagram that Linda of Lavender Mountain Yarns out of North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, Linda had watched Jen's podcast. I won a prize from one of Jen's Ravelry giveaways, and Linda tuned into mine and then learned about Watson, and Linda has a rescue dog, and so we all kind of connected. And Linda offered to send me some yarn for a future giveaway. Linda is incredibly talented and incredibly generous. So I have two potential giveaways. And I've been thinking, how do I want to do this? Do I want to do like a number of followers giveaway? Do I want to just do a Ravelry post giveaway? And I haven't really decided. I was even thinking of doing another knit along once the holidays end and we're in the new year. The problem I found is, and I think it's just the number of limited followers I have right now, there's not much activity in my Ravelry group. It's almost as though people see it, they join, and then that's it. I've tried to do a page where people can ask me questions. I did a knit along. It was called the Anne with an E knit along for Anne of Green Gables. There wasn't a lot of activity in that, and there definitely wasn't a lot in the finished objects. So I don't know if it's because I don't make something in particular. I mean, I knit, of course, but I don't dye yarn. I don't make bags. I don't know if that's the lack of activity and following. I'm not sure. So all that to say, I was thinking of doing another knit along, and using these as a prize for that too. So I'm definitely going to be giving these away. I just haven't figured out how I'm going to give them away yet because they're so beautiful. I want them to go to a good home and for a good purpose. So, first of all, thank you so much, Linda, for your generosity. And I have to apologize to Linda because she sent me an Instagram message and it didn't pop up on my phone. And it was like 3 weeks after she sent it that I was like, oh my God, I have this message from this very generous person. I need to respond. So, I certainly appreciate that. So, Linda sent along these beautiful little bundles. So, you'll get some nice tea. And then this is one colorway that she sent. I hope the light is doing it justice. It's so beautiful. It's called Autumn Leaves, and this is a 100% superwash merino DK. So there's 246 yards, 100 grams, and it's a hand wash. But Linda also includes with her yarn these little stitch markers, these little wood burn stitch markers. Aren't they sweet? So whomever, whatever I decide to do, you will get the skein of yarn and the stitch marker and that little bag of tea as well. So I'm just going to set that aside. And then she also included another bag with tea. And again, also a stitch marker. This reminds me of France, to be completely honest. It reminds me of the lavender. I didn't see the lavender fields, but everybody kept talking about them. It reminds me of the lavender fields and the sunrise. This is a superwash merino, DK as well. 246 yards, 100 grams, hand wash. It's the wild orchid colorway. So, like I said, I want to come up with some drawing or prize or knit along or something to gift those away. Linda did include a lovely note, and she did say for all of my followers, there's 10% off for November plus free shipping. She didn't include how to go about receiving that, but you might just be able to send her a message in her store to achieve that. And I apologize, it's the end of November as I'm sharing this with you. But again, thank you so much, Linda. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to sharing your yarn and your talent with other crafters and makers. So that, I believe, is officially the end of the podcast. I appreciate your sticking with me. I appreciate your still being followers and watching, given my absence and that length of time. But I look forward to hopefully podcasting with a little bit more frequency. I would say that life will settle down, but the minute I say that, I know I'll jinx myself. So maybe I'll get another one in before the holidays, but if not, I wish everyone a safe and happy and healthy holiday season. May it be filled with many blessings and moments shared with loved ones and friends. And I hopefully will see you before the new year. And otherwise, just enjoy this time of year. Enjoy knitting, making things for one another, for yourself, and just wrap yourself in the warmth of it all. Take care.